God of War is a notably dark and brutal PS2 game made very clearly for older teenagers and adults way back in 2005. Its mature themes and penchant for violence alongside the nihilistic and cruel nature of its protagonist helped set it aside from other, cuter, and often clunkier action games at the time. And of course, 12-year-old me adored it. To me and my friends, it was an absolute treasure. And Kratos, the conduit through which our 12-year-old little hands ripped apart our Minotaur adversaries, was truly a god. This man personified cool. He had abs, he had chain swords, and he does the mini game with these nice ladies. He was mean, ruthless, and unstoppable. The ultimate anti-hero, the ultimate asshole. Kratos can kill innocent people for help. He without hesitation or complaint burns a caged man alive. He shoots this one dude with a lightning bolt, and when he does it, it makes this sound that I like a lot. And even in cutscenes outside of our control, he's no less vicious. He kills this captain dude for absolutely no reason at all. Twice. It makes perfect sense all that was cool to me as a child in 2005, however as an adult it makes Kratos seem like, well, what he is. Kinda evil. And if I want to be evil, I want it to be on my terms. You could sum up my old man feelings on who Keratosis is as a person by saying it's not cool to be an asshole. Unfortunately, the game wasn't tremendously self-aware in this regard. You get the feeling this is all supposed to be very impressive and neat. And to be perfectly honest, at the time, I remember thinking it all was. He's like it or not an original character. He's different than other more family-friendly PlayStation mascots, and the surreal barbarism he brought with him hadn't really been seen before, at least outside of maybe Mortal Kombat. And he's something of an icon in terms of design too, while also being a shirtless, bald man he's somehow instantly recognizable. Whether or not you know Kratos, I bet most people seeing this character associate him with God of War. Of course, such a memorable character needs equally unforgettable weapons, and that's why even now, all these years later, we're still talking about the Blade of Artemis. That was a joke, I also forgot it was in the game. The Blades of Chaos, and to a lesser extent their variations you play with in 2 and 3, are the main weapons I will forever associate with Kratos. Their range, area of effect, variety in terms of combos and attacks, especially considering this was almost 20 years ago, I appreciate them even more. Combat in God of War is a massive highlight for me. All 4 magic attacks are extremely useful in their own situations, some more so than others looking at you Poseidon's Rage, and both playable weapons were impressive for its time. That there even was 2 different weapons this well fleshed out was impressive for 2005. At the time, in many ways, as an action game it was and sorta still is a masterpiece. You could even double jump, and then swim underwater. But as with all good things, especially double jumps, we have to take the bad along with it. In this case, the bad is platforming. This game made me realize deep video game related things about myself I would have outright denied before. One of those things is that I do not actually like platforming. Thankfully, there aren't very many truly difficult sections except this one, and this is more climbing with hazards than actual platforming. Nomenclature aside, whatever this is, it sucks. My first playthrough, which was actually like my second or third in my life, but my first playthrough as the old man I currently am, I was stuck here for maybe 25 minutes. That doesn't sound too bad, and for an Elden Ring boss it wouldn't be, but for me here, in this game, at that moment, I don't know if I've ever hated anything more. Second run, breezed right through it, barely even an issue. As a 12-year-old, I didn't even log that part of the game into my brain, but this one day, I just couldn't do it. Look at me. Hilariously furious. I would say the rest of the game is so good it makes up for it, but I really did hate this a lot. Some of these puzzles can be pretty torturous, though I actually might love them more in this game than in God of War. Every now and then you get to do something that makes you feel clever or skillful or both. Even on subsequent replays, you might know how to solve it, but be able to test yourself to see how much faster or more efficient you could have been. And I wish we could drag or kick these boxes faster, but it is what it is. Maybe that frustration you feel from the slow box dragging and horrible Blade Pillar of Nightmares is intentional. I wouldn't put it past David Jaffe, the game's creator. He, like 12-year-old me at the time, thought Kratos and his 24/7 Rageathon was actually very cool. He openly stated in interviews at the time he wanted Kratos to be a mean, brutal asshole. And he is. Mission most accomplished. I would say it's quite possible the player's anger is meant, at times, to mirror our anti-hero. But this sort of thing isn't cathartic for me. I don't want to be more frustrated. I already am frustrated. Life has become my spinning Blade Pillar of Nightmares. It's also entirely possible that I dislike Kratos so much as a character in this game because I'm too used to the bearded guy. And now I'm closer in age and temperament to that dude, and seeing his early cringe years reminds me too much of my own. Then again, if I really think about it, I've also come to identify with this 2005 Kratos in my old age because he's constantly being manipulated and fucked over until he gives up and just sits down in the chair where everyone tells him to. And if that isn't relatable, then nothing is. I feel like maybe I should explain. If you're unfamiliar with Kratos and his backstory, he made a deal with the god Ares, granting him superhuman strength, stamina, and a couple of short swords attached to chains that go inside his arms permanently. This made him powerful, able to defeat any terrestrial threat he may face in the battlefield, and in exchange, he need only serve Ares, the god of war, forever. To the bloodthirsty Spartan commander, this was an absolute win-win, and he happily carried out horrible murders and massacres at the behest of his fiery orange overlord. He rampaged unstoppable for a time until one day he came upon a temple in a faraway land from his home. Inside, he couldn't see too well for some reason. I think this gets retconned later, and he ends up tragically murdering his wife and child. It's revealed that this was Ares doing, and simply in order to make Kratos a better warrior. Afterward, their ashes are bound to his skin more permanently than the chains ever could be, and he's cursed to walk the earth as the ghost of Sparta for all time. Vowing revenge against the god who wronged him and seeking an end to his nightmares and visions of that night, Kratos turns to the only power he can, the other gods. This is where we begin our game. Soon after, the first order the player and our playable character receive from Athena herself is to save her city, Athens, from Ares. And lo and behold, we do. Glory be. But it's not easy. It's an entire PS2 game of struggle. Our boy even dies and climbs his way out of the underworld to make this happen, but in the end, he does it. And exactly as promised, because the gods are just, they free him of his visions and dreams of slaughtering his loved ones, granting him eternal peace and relief. I'm being very sarcastic. They're just like, thanks a bunch, champ. I'm not actually going to do that for you. I was never going to, and in fact, I've always felt you deserve to remember what you've done. Congratulations, toolbag. And so, exactly as I would do, overcome with despair that he was lied to, that he would feel this way forever, that he had lost all he fought for and got called a toolbag, Kratos low ever yeeted himself from the highest cliff he could find, and prayed for death's overwhelming abrupt finality to take hold. But nope, get that shit out of here, said Athena in exactly those words, pulling him/us up out of the water and placing him/us upon the very throne we had just minutes ago viciously vacated. We take Ares' place both in title and in chair, and Kratos serves into the rest of history, watching over every great conflict as the new god of war. And that sounds cool if you don't think about it, but if you do, it's pretty terrible. I mean, it is Greek, and it is a tragedy, but yeah. And also, all of this gets retconned too. But that's irrelevant right now. As much as I feel like Kratos might have deserved his end if that's what he wanted, I'm still sorta happy for him that he got the chance to keep going anyway. Despite how horrible his mind palace is going to be for the rest of his eternal life, if he had just been shattered on the surface of the water and credits rolled, we'd never have gotten to throw the cold axe. Or even think about calling a human child boy in our best Kevin Conroy Batman voice. As nihilistic and irreverent as the game's general vibe can be, in the end I think that's going to have been my biggest takeaway from the story. That no matter how bad we may feel sometimes, throwing yourself off a cliff certainly never made anyone's life any better. If you stick it out, good things can happen eventually. No matter what the voiceover in the epilogue says, that lady has no idea what a retcon even is. She's a fictional character. I really do honestly believe it's worth it to keep fighting through this horrible platformer-esque existence we call life. I think it is the right choice to move forward no matter what, if for no other reason than because you've already been to this metaphorical cliff. You already know what the alternative is. And even if it seems like all hope is gone, just think. One day you might be a stern, jacked, bearded papa with a long life and a dead wife. And you know what that sounds like to me? Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting. And that's a great movie.